Having attended the show live, the return pop for Randy Orton was insane, but even more insane was CM Punk's return. Hey everybody, your host SonGoshuaku here to give you the live perspective of WWE Survivor Series 2023 WarGames. So please excuse my voice throughout this review as it's still recovering. We kick things off with the women's WarGames match. Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch versus Damage Control, consisting of Bayley, Asuka, Iyo Sky, and Kairi Sane, with Dakota Kai at ringside. One of the nice things that I really enjoyed is that they added the rules that if you escape the steel cage, then you forfeit the match for your entire team. So that's a really great incentive to understand why people don't run out of the cage, even though this is something that we would see throughout the match. So Becky and Bayley started off with their teams being that they were the Iron Women of this match, having the gas tanks to go. Now, some of the dynamics was interesting because they had this Ruffles poll online where everyone could choose who would get the advantage, the faces and the heels. And of course, you know, the fans were going to choose the babyface side. And so you had this dynamic here where the baby faces are ganging up on the heel. And I could see how a lot of people were bothered by this because usually what's better is to have the heels ganging up on the babyface and they have to make that miraculous underdog-like climb back up to victory. However, with this, you could also make the argument that it was the heels getting a taste of their own medicine, so I could see it kind of works both ways. So here's some of the noteworthy spots that took place during this match. Bianca, she actually came out with her hair wrapped up as a double ponytail, which she uses as a very cool spot. So like Bayley and Iyo Sky are grabbing Bianca by the ponytails when she's on the ropes. I forget which one of the members of Damage Control she was, doing the whole, punching, pounding away and stuff like that. And so Bianca Belair does a backflip over Bayley and Iyo, and then from there, she ends up using her ponytails that they're still holding on to and pulls them both into her and immediately, smoothly transitions this into a double suplex to them. That was really awesome. And of course, Iyo Sky, she's always got to get her WarGames trash can spot in. And what that is where she, of course, goes to the top of the cage and puts the trash can over her upper body and then goes ahead and jumps onto everyone below. They did something really cool here where she throws out the chain to Dakota Kai, and Dakota Kai ends up basically snapping it onto the chain, so she pulls the garbage can up, and then that's where she does the spot. Now, this spot can be very illogical because while it visually looks stunning, at the same time, if you see someone climbing up on the cage and putting their whole upper body in a trash can and jumping off, you might as well just do what Samoa Joe does and walk away, because they're just gonna go ahead and crash and burn. But they do this spot, and you can tell Iyo Sky has a lot of fun with this spot, and the audience has a lot of fun with it because it always gets the holy crap chant with that. So yes, another dynamic thing that they did with the whole trash can deal is there's a part where they put it over Becky Lynch's upper body. Now, once again, this is a spot where I think usually you would have the heel it'd be done to the heel because it makes the heel look ridiculous and embarrassing and the baby faces gets one up over them. But at the same time, you can see how, well, that's what a heel does. They want to embarrass the baby face as well. Another thing that they did with Becky Lynch and Bianca that I thought was actually really cool was that they wrapped the Damage Control, they wrapped the steel chain around both of them, and with both of them in the sit down position with nowhere to go, you see all members of Damage Control do this 4-way drop kick, and that was really cool. There were some funny parts like Kairi Sane. She came down marching to the ring, but in a very skipping capacity like this. In fact, if you are a Dragon Ball fan like me, you'll remember there's scenes where the evil Boo, such as the thin Majin Buu, and even I think Super Buu in one of the fillers, he runs across water and he's doing like this. So I thought that was pretty funny. She was in no hurry basically to help her teammates who were dying in there at the point. But I did think it was really cool how Kairi Sane did this sort of spinning back fist, but with the trash can. So I thought that was really awesome. More dynamic issues with faces and heels here is Asuka. So there's a part where she goes to the ring and she's throwing in the weapons such as the Kindle sticks, and she even goes ahead and throws in a table, and before that, the fans were booing. But when she got that table in, the fans were cheering, were chanting, "Thank you, Asuka. Thank you, Asuka." And once again, it just plays the dynamic. Obviously, the table gets one of the biggest spots, biggest pops of the night. Not so much on this night, but it was a huge pop. And this is where, once again, I think that's something better that you would have a babyface do as opposed to a heel. There was even really a cool moment where Charlotte Flair does the moonsault off the steel cage and landed on everyone, and her basically landing on, well, you know what, I shouldn't say everybody, because she looked like she missed the other two women on the side and only the two women that was below her that she kind of caught. But the thing is, this spot, we've seen it with Kurt Angle, and while you definitely could obviously say the Kurt Angle spot was better, this was probably a lot more safer for Charlotte Flair's long-term health, because those spots really jacked up Kurt Angle's knees. And here, at least Charlotte, I don't think will have to have long-term knee problems from the way she executed this spot and how everybody catched her. There was even a really cool spot in the match where Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch embraced, so this was kind of like a really nice emotional moment that they had where the women were burying the hatchet, and hopefully in real life they have buried the hatchet and let go of whatever issues caused their friendship to go down, as they've both mentioned publicly, I think, particularly in the Stone Cold podcast, because let's be honest, both these women definitely have a lot to be proud of when it comes to what they have accomplished here in WWE and what they've done for women's wrestling over the last decade. So I thought that was really cool. Now, the story at the end of the match, that was really good. Basically, Damage Control throughout this match had various points where they were going to lose, yet it was Bayley who constantly kept saving them from getting the pinfall loss, and that was really showing how, like I said, she was truly the MVP for Damage Control, and that means whether she was jumping over, nearly taking off the referee Charles Robinson's head, Michael Cole mentioned that on the commentary, to break up the pin, or even taking a spear from Charlotte Flair by pushing Kairi out of the way. So truly, Damage Control really had someone fighting super hard to keep this thing going, and that was Bayley. Also, towards the end, Asuka goes for the purple miss on Shotzi, which she actually did earlier in the match, and it caught Shotzi, but this time, and I like this little story detail, is that Shotzi remembers, and this time she ends up dunking, and out of the way from her and from Shotzi going ahead and dunking, you have Bianca Belair use the fire extinguisher, so ironically Asuka getting hit with the weapon that she brought in, and this takes her and the rest of Damage Control completely out of commission. So then here in the closing parts of the match, we get Shotzi does the senton bomb onto Bayley, and then Bianca Belair does the KOD to Bayley, and then basically takes an exhausted Bayley who has nothing left, pushes her up to Becky Lynch, who then does the manhandle slam off the top rope through the table for the 1-2-3, again getting the victory just like she did last year for her team. And there you go. And you know what, big shout out to Shotzi, because as I mentioned in my review and ranking videos last year, her and Ronda, though I'm a fan of both, man, their match together just wasn't clicking, but here there was a lot of things clicking, and that was really cool to see Shotzi get that redemption, because you just know she didn't want that match last year to be what her Survivor Series legacy is. So I'm glad that she got a chance to redeem herself, and fans can go ahead and add a really good Survivor Series match to Shotzi's resume. And honestly, just overall, I thought this was a really fun match. It told a story of these women going to war, which is what you want to see in war games. So hats off to all women involved. Really fun match, and I thought was better than last year's, honestly. And at the end, we even get all four baby faces on top of the cage doing the whole tea sipping hand gesture that we would see often Charlotte and Becky doing earlier before all the whole things went down with their friendship falling apart and things like that. And I'm very interested to see where things go in terms of Bayley and Damage Control, because like I said, she was the MVP here. She was the one fighting the hardest to make sure that the team didn't lose until she ultimately ultimately was the one. But I think there's a great story to tell because, as I mentioned on the No DQ review when I streamed live with them the previous night before this recording, shout out to No DQ, by the way, I mentioned that Charlotte and Bianca, they don't really need the title to be on the line if that's the direction for them to face off at WrestleMania 40. So I think that's perfectly fine having that just be its own standalone attraction match. You can sure go ahead and take Becky and put her up against Rhea for the women's championship, but I think there's a great redemption story to tell of Bayley going ahead and redeeming herself, becoming a face, winning the Royal Rumble, and taking on and defeating Iyo at WrestleMania. Don't know that, I doubt that's gonna main event, but yeah, Bayley winning the women's Royal Rumble would be awesome. But hey, time shall tell in the months to come. Alright, you got a Ruffle skit after this, of course, and I don't blame WWE. Get as much money as they can, but the biggest noteworthy thing about this skit was that R-Truth returned, and it's great to see R-Truth back. Next up, for the WWE Intercontinental Championship, Gunther versus The Miz. Let's be honest, we already knew exactly how this match was going to go, but I knew, even though we weren't in denial about who the victor would be, it was obviously that it was going to still be a good match because anyone who's followed The Miz's work knows how fantastic The Miz is at just all things when it comes to being the full total package of a WWE superstar. And I really liked that in this match, Miz actually broke out a lot of references to Bret the Hitman Hart because he mentioned him as being one of those greats among the Intercontinental previous champions, and that was great to see. I also like the psychology that Miz, when he takes off the turnbuckle pad, he kicks Gunther in the knee, and then while he's in a sleeper hold, and then the referee, when he's basically looking at the turnbuckle to try and put it back on or at least get it out of sight, because his vision is this way and the action is this way, Miz then goes ahead and delivers a low blow kick to Gunther and does the skull crushing finale for a very, very close near fall. I like this because if we've seen The Miz cheat throughout most of his career, why should that change because he's a babyface? Just like if there's a babyface that defiantly goes through everybody on the main roster and then they go heel and now all of a sudden they have to cheat, it's an inconsistency. So I like that The Miz hasn't changed who he is. He's a babyface, yet he's still using the same tactics that we've seen him use his career. It's not like he just went face and got this superpower out of nowhere. So that was cool to see. But in the end, The Miz ends up losing by tapping out to Gunther, who does a Boston Crab and really plants his knee into his back. Almost sort of like a lion tamer. Maybe it was a nod to Chris Jericho being so much of a talk as a 9-time champion, because that's what Miz would have become had he won this match. So like I said, the victor was never in doubt. However, it was a very solid, serviceable match that filled time in a good way and not a bad way. Next up, Santos Escobar versus Dragon Lee. Alright, so if you followed my SummerSlam review, you know that I was really looking forward to seeing Trish Stratus for the first time, 23 years, having never seen her through her whole career, wrestle, even though it wasn't advertised. The build-up seemed certainly there for her and Becky. I was there at SummerSlam, didn't get it. Then, again, Carlito, who's now back in WWE, he, after 15 years or so watching this guy wrestle, I'm thinking, oh man, I finally get to see Carlito wrestle in person, because he's never been to any of the events I went, even though I started going back in the late 2000s. And what does the WWE do again? They take him off the card, and I'm like, man, that's just a personal thing for me. Really would have loved to see Trish Stratus and Carlito this year wrestle, but it just wasn't meant to be. I don't know if Carlito's dealing with some sort of injury and they had to write him off last minute. That's what it seems like. That being said, in all due respect to Carlito, you kind of knew that at this point, Dragon Lee and Escobar were probably going to put on the much more exciting match from a high-flying standpoint, and the match definitely delivered that. You had some great high-flying action, some great spots. This did a lot, basically, to showcase Dragon Lee, and there was some nice storytelling as well, such as Escobar trying to eliminate Dragon Lee's leg in the same manner of which he did Rey Mysterio. So I really enjoyed that, but in the end, Escobar does pick up the win with his finisher, the Phantom Driver, and that's it. Honestly, I think the match match, though it was a nice solid match, it never kicked into high gear. So I know these two are definitely capable of more, and I would love to see them run it back, but hopefully this time with a lot better story build up, because if the story was there for Carlito and Escobar, that's where I would have loved to have seen it go. Next up, the WWE Women's World Championship match, Rhea Ripley versus Zoey Stark. So, once again, another match that was not in doubt. Rhea Ripley, obviously, with the big Australia show coming up in February, no way she's gonna lose the title before we get to her home country. But that being said, you still knew Zoey Stark is a great performer, and this was going to be a good match with both these women, and that's what it was, a solid showcase of Zoey Stark, of what she can do as Triple H continues to build her up and get her recognized by the WWE main audience, as well as a reminder of just why Rhea Ripley is so great as the total package presentation that she is when it comes to her character. And man, she was way over. I can tell you the reaction. Shoot, even I was cheering loud for Rhea Ripley and all the mommy chants and stuff like that. It's like when Zoey Stark came out, people kind of gave her, a nice little applause and everything like that, just to be polite. But when Rhea came out, people was like, yeah! So that was really great to see. Rhea Ripley in this whole match was just taken as the baby face, even though she was the heel. But once again, Rhea Ripley actually picked up a very clean win. Basically, her and Zoey were trading blows back and forth, but then she lands her headbutt and then gets the riptide and does the 1-2-3 pin. I guess what we now can call is the mommy is always on top pin. So she beats Zoey and Rhea Ripley continues. So once again, very serviceable match, predictable. Yes, we knew who was winning, but solid for the filler that it was meant to be. But I will say this, I really do like that Triple H is keeping Zoey Stark and Shayna Baszler in big prominent positions, because one thing is it goes ahead and tells us, the audience, that the time that Zoey spent with Trish Stratus, the time that Shayna spent with Ronda, it all meant something, and you have to be able to know that, okay, why spend all this time investing and giving these two women the rub from legends like Trish Stratus and someone who I think is going to be a future Hall of Famer like Ronda Rousey. Why go there with them if you're not going to do anything afterwards? So I really enjoyed the follow-up, even though they're not the world champions. And now, the main event, the men's War Games match. Cody Rhodes, Seth freaking Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and Randy Orton versus Drew McIntyre and the Judgment Day, consisting of Damian Priest, Finn Bálor, Dirty Dominik Mysterio, and JD McDonagh. Now, as cool as Drew McIntyre and the Judgment Day's entrances are, man, I have never experienced in a WWE event the just tremendous sustained hype after hype after hype moment that you got with all four baby faces entrances, whether we were doing the, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins, all that, just singing stuff, and especially when we got to Cody Rhodes, whoa, yeah, stuff like that. Also, my gosh, did the hype get real with Jey Uso? We were all doing, it's just me, Uso, day one, it was just really a lot of fun, and this is what I'm always been talking about for years with WWE. Go ahead and give us multiple top guys and gals. It doesn't have to be about just that one guy, one gal. And this is what happens. You get all these baby faces that are all hot with the crowd for the entrances. Because man, what I'm telling you, out there and being in there in Allstate Arena, we were lit for that. I really also enjoyed Seth Rollins, how he starts this match. So he does a suicide dive right over both ropes from one ring to the other ring and just start hammering Finn Bálor, and it starts off really good. Also, some of the noteworthy things that I want to say about this match, Jey Uso, man, this guy was on fire. Every time he strike, the audience was like, yeet, yeet, yeet. There was just a lot of yeeting going on. Then we had, of course, Damian Priest at one point pulls out a baton, a steel baton, and just starts wrecking everybody with it. And one of the really good things that I had to mention, and I mentioned this earlier with the women's war games, was that dynamic of face and heel turn. So unlike Asuka being the heel taking out the table, it's actually Sami Zayn who takes out the table, and he's the babyface and gets the thank you Sami chance, and it makes much more sense when you do it that way. Another thing that was great contrast to that steel baton that Damian Priest took out earlier was Sami Zayn from the cage taking out a metal pipe, and that's where he just starts wrecking all the heels with it. I also love when Drew McIntyre came out. He just changed the whole dynamic of the match in his favor, taking out all the baby faces, making sure it was him and Jey Uso one-on-one in that second ring. And listen, I was probably the only guy, at least in my section of the audience, still chanting for Drew. I was like, Drew, and I'm like, I've been loyal since day one when you were the chosen one. I'm gonna stay loyal, because I mean, yeah, even Drew McIntyre going heel, I'm still a loyal Drew McIntyre fan, so I was cheering for him. The other people in the audience were looking at me because they were basically like, no, Drew. They were cheering for Jey Uso, so hey, gotta stay loyal. That being said, going back to this match, yeah, he got Jey Uso one-on-one. That's what the whole psychology was for Drew. He just cared about getting revenge on Jey Uso, so I love the storytelling that you got here. And another thing that was really cool was that you got to see Jey Uso and Sami work together doing the 1D, and Cody Rhodes, man, just being able to compete in the WWE version of the match that his father, the late great American Dream Dusty Rhodes, invented. That was really cool. Speaking of Dusty Rhodes, Cody Rhodes actually pulls out a bull rope, which was also made famous by his father's legendary matches, and Seth and Cody, and a cool callback to their match in that same very building for Hell in a Cell, both ended up using it as a weapon against the Judgment Day. Also, I can't begin to describe the amount of heat Dominik Mysterio gets. I'm telling y'all right now, WWE programming, man, it does not do it justice of how much heat he gets. Ain't nothing piped in about that. Even before the 10-second countdown, people were saying, Dom, you suck, or F you, Dom, and the boos. I have never experienced such a loud, sustained, unanimous boo from the entire audience. It was incredible to witness in person. So Dominik Mysterio really has come a long way being able to generate that heel heat. And it's funny too, because I was in the building at Allstate Arena for Survivor Series 2019, where he got one of the biggest ovations of the night because he did the father-son 619, and now 4 years later for that same event in that same building, he is now getting booed heavily. So man, the amount of things that can change in just 4 years. There was a funny dig by Michael Cole when Dominik Mysterio ran out where he said, that's the longest Dominik has spent behind bars. That was a fantastic line that really works with the whole Dirty Dom character. Now, getting to the closing parts of this match, the Judgment Day was basically taking advantage of the 5-on-4 advantage. All the baby faces were laid out, and then when the 10-second countdown happened, Rhea Ripley comes running out with the briefcase, and I was wondering, were they going to do a cash-in within the War Games match? But before that could become a possibility, Randy Orton's music hits, and man, he got a monstrous reaction from all of us. We were jumping up and down, man. It was definitely the biggest pop of the night until we get to the end of the show, that is. But man, it was huge. And Randy Orton, man, the guy came out looking jacked. Biggest I've seen Randy Orton in I don't know how long, since probably the early 2000s. But yeah, Randy Orton came in phenomenal shape, but those big new muscles that he had definitely did not take away from his cardio, because he was conditioned doing all his signature moves. It was just great. The hype in the arena was tremendous. So that was really good to see. And they had done this storyline where they were doing like, would he or would he not show up? And I was like, why would you do that in Chicago unless something much bigger was planned towards the end of the show? More about that later. So we get to the rest of this match. Randy Orton, you talk about how dynamics changed with Drew McIntyre. Randy Orton definitely changed the dynamics into the favor of the baby faces, and Randy Orton, man, he was just killing it. And this is why I've always have enjoyed Randy Orton, because that man understands psychology and storytelling, and he did not lose any bit of that in this match. Randy Orton, when he came face to face with Drew McIntyre, they were having this intense stare down, which was a callback because Randy, of course, was the first person to defeat Drew McIntyre for the World Championship. So you saw them going back and rekindling their feud. There's even a part also, the Randy Orton DDT, where he drapes his opponent's feet over the top ropes and then crashes them down, all of the baby faces to the heel. So that was spectacular to see in person. And I really love Randy Orton. Once again, great storytelling, turning over to Jey Uso when he was gearing up for the RKO. And he told Jey Uso right then and there that, hey, he has not forgotten that it was the bloodline that took him out, basically remembering that spot. But Jey Uso, being a team player, ended up doing the super kick to Damian Priest before he could attack Randy Orton. So even though Randy hasn't forgotten, they still were being doing what they needed to do in order to be team players. So I really love that detail in the match. And then from here, man, it just went crazy. The baby faces just went wild, hitting all their signature and finishers on the Judgment Day. And this all ultimately leads to JD McDonagh being the only person left. And so he climbs the cage, and of course you would forfeit if you climb over the cage and escape, but he's just basically trying to run for his life here. And at this point, Seth Rollins and Sami, they catch up with him to the top of the cage, throw him off of the cage into a super RKO by Randy Orton. And man, we all went wild for this. This was awesome. Randy Orton still finding new ways to make the RKO look spectacular. And then this leads to Randy Orton basically endorsing his fellow Legacy member. So it was cool to get a reunion of Legacy here with Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes. And he gives Damian Priest over to Cody Rhodes, who finishes Damian Priest off with the Crossroads. 1, 2, 3, matches over, and the good guys win. This was, like I said, a fantastic WarGames match. Storytelling wise, not as good as the WarGames last year for the men, but this certainly from an in-ring perspective, I thought was definitely better. And man, the hype was way bigger for this one. There were so many hype moments. So it was a fantastic match to see in person, and you got to see everybody celebrating. So it was really awesome. And there's only one thing that could top this, and that was cue the static. Look in my eyes, what do you see? CM Punk comes back and walks out of there, and we all went crazy. Like, that is the reason why, like I said, you've been hearing my voice through this review. That's why my voice is pretty much still recovering, because, oh man, I went crazy. And throughout the night, and this is the live perspective, you had people chanting, CM Punk, CM Punk, CM Punk. And I would say that was about 90% of the audience. 10% of the audience were booing them out because they didn't think that he was going to show up. Now, for me, I was on the neutral side. I'm like, okay, I'm reading the reports. I hear what the reports say, but never say never. I could very well see that WWE would bring in CM Punk because they have a long history of burying the hatchet with people they were on bad terms with. So you knew it couldn't be out of the realm of possibility. Likewise, on the flip side, you knew about CM Punk's history, or all the reports that were stated, and well, yeah, both his history with WWE and the reports that were stated in AEW. So it's not too far-fetched to believe that, hey, they would basically not want anything to do. So I said, I'm just gonna play it neutral. If he shows up, I'll go crazy. If he doesn't, well, hey, I didn't get myself excited for no reason and will not leave disappointed. I am a guy who basically, even though I read the reports online, like on NoDQ.com, I like to just sit and wait for the moment, because the moment itself ends all doubt, and man, it was fantastic. And being there live, I can tell you that when the baby faces won War Games, in my section, there were people who were walking out because they thought that was the show. And if you look back, when I went back and looked at it on Peacock, and yeah, they were really lingering a lot with just showing those replays. They even threw up the credit graphic, so it looked like it was gonna end. And then the CM Punk Cult of Personality 2023 remaster, which I think Living Color dropped about 24 hours before Survivor Series. More clues that something was up here with Punk coming in. Then that hit, man. I bet all those people that were probably halfway out the ring was like, oh snap, CM Punk, let me run back. They missed that, man. So always, like with credits, I always stay until the very end of the credit rolls. Same thing with WWE. I always stay to the very end of the event once the announcers basically send everyone home and say thanks for coming out tonight and we'll see you next time, so that was cool. And man, the reaction CM Punk got. Now listen, I was here at Allstate Arena in 2011 at Money in the Bank, and that was a thunderous pop that CM Punk got from all of us when he won the WWE Championship. But this topped this by a large margin. See, I have just never, in all the WWE events I've been to and throughout the years, I have never seen or heard or experienced such a long, sustained, roaring, cheering for someone to come out. Man, this pop, this reaction was it's beyond thunderous. It's beyond blowing the roof off. It was massive. Just one long and then CM Punk singing the lyrics. Like, it was huge. We all went crazy. Even the 10% that were booing, they were jumping up and down. Like, man, the reaction, like, you had to be there. It is probably the best reaction I've ever witnessed in person at a WWE event, and I've been going since 2007. So that's over a decade and a half, and I've experienced some great moments, especially with Punk in Chicago as well. AEW winning the AEW Championship, him defeating Jericho at Extreme Rules 2012. I mean, this just topped almost any pop I've heard in person for the times that I've seen CM Punk wrestle, or even just show up on a wrestling show. This was incredible, an amazing moment, and it doesn't surprise me that on WWE's YouTube, it's gotten millions of views, like probably over 4.5 million views, probably still rising by the time this video is up. It is tremendous. So an all-time great moment, and overall, I think it made Survivor Series great because being there in person, you had two great matches with just enough solid filler matches built off this tremendous, huge return. And now, as we go into 2024, Triple H is making things look really good, and I'm glad that Triple H has taken over in terms of full creative control from what the reports have said about Ari Emanuel, basically giving that to him. Because let's be honest, Vince McMahon, like I said, I thought he was tremendous for where he got the business to, but in the later years, man, there was a lot of booking decisions I thought was just head scratching. But now here, this shows the testament, because let's be honest, WWE did not need CM Punk from a financial standpoint, from getting the arenas sold out standpoint. Survivor Series was already sold out pretty much before Punk even, I think, got released from AEW. They don't need him from a merchandising standpoint. There's so many things that is going on right now with WWE's business. They don't need Punk, but Triple H, to his credit, he does not get complacent. You can tell he still has the passion for this. Yeah, we don't need Punk because we're still thriving, but why not go there? As he said in the press conference, this was like a last minute decision or something like that. And he says if the fans want CM Punk, he gets people talking. That's good for business. So why not bring him in? And that's what I think we love. We love that we have been seeing in WWE in recent times, that effort, knowing that just because WWE can just rest on their laurels because they're making that money, they still go all out and do this. So I'm looking forward to it. And I know some people are concerned, well, what about the reports in AEW? CM Punk, and look at at this. How in the world is WWE going to manage CM Punk when he was barely manageable at the end of AEW? But here's the deal. We know what WWE nips things in the bud. If things get out of control with CM Punk, they will not hesitate to nip things in the bud. Like I said, they are financially doing well enough right now. So if CM Punk isn't going to be professional, then there you go. WWE, they don't have to deal with him. But I think CM Punk will be professional, just like they got this thing about after the show. I didn't see it from my viewpoint on where I was sitting, but yeah, you have Seth Rollins going ahead and cursing out CM Punk. And like I said on the No DQ review, do we really think that Seth Rollins was going to be unprofessional and run up and attack CM Punk in the position that he is in the company? No, I think these guys at the end of the day, they don't like each other, but they will be professional and work for the greater good to do what they're going to do, and that's entertain us, the audience, while making a lot of money doing so. So I think the future is looking really bright for WWE as we head into 2024, and as someone who my all-time favorite is Stone Cold Steve Austin, we saw just as recent as last year's WrestleMania, Stone Cold Steve Austin can still go at an acceptable level. So, knowing CM Punk, who can still also go at an acceptable level, possibly there's a chance that we might get CM Punk versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in the very near future. I'm looking forward to it if it does happen. It just doesn't seem like it's no longer far-fetched, and man, I think it's an exciting time to be WWE. Yeah, it's not the Attitude Era and all the great eras we grew up with, but I think for the first time in just years, WWE is better than what it has been, and that's all we want as wrestling fans. Fun characters, fun storylines, fun moments. Also, gotta give a shout out to all the fans for the last 9 years at the Allstate Arena that kept chanting CM Punk, because y'all never gave up and you finally got your moment. So there's a good lesson. Never give up. It just might happen one day. So I think WWE ended off on a really high note for Survivor Series, just like Triple H did so many times with NXT. When you look at the PLEs this year, there have been good shows, there have been great shows, but I don't think there's been one bad show, and this Survivor Series was far from bad. So overall, really looking forward to it. That being said, you can check out my ranking of the Survivor Series 2023 matches in the very near future, but in the meantime, there's my other ranking videos that you can check out next. Also, make sure to subscribe so that way you are notified when my WWE content is released, and remember to like and comment about what you thought of the show. Until next time, take care.